what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
We'll be interviewing Ron DeSantis, and he has quite an announcement to make, and will be the first time that something like this is happening on social media, and with real-time questions and answers, not scripted.
And that's the dude who owns Twitter, Elon Musk, and Stephanie Bell's super excited about what's happening tonight on Twitter, not because it's Ron DeSantis announcing he's running for president. She's excited because she's going to be able to hear Elon Musk. Good morning.
Yay.
Yeah. Welcome into the show. We're going to get into this. Also, the latest on the debt ceiling stuff. The word they keep using, and this word was used again yesterday after talks, productive. Economist Aaron Hedlund has something different related to the debt ceiling. We come on every morning, still nothing new. And is the world going to come to an end on June 1st or whenever it is they think that we run out of money and it gets kind of redundant? But economist Aaron Hedlund actually has something really different related to this. Hear what he has to say coming up at 6:30, and how are some Americans using AI? We are using it here again this morning. That's coming up 6:50 and then 7:10. Raven Harrison. I love Raven Harrison, man. She's an incredible, I don't even know what to call her. She's not a political talking head, but she comments on politics. Very unique take. She's here at 7:10. Want to ask her, on a scale of 1 to 10, does anybody have a chance at beating Trump in the GOP primary? Scale of 1 to 10. She breaks that down for us here at 7:10 today. DeSantis going on to Twitter Spaces, and this is where I rely on the help of everybody else here on the show, because now, Hannah, we're getting into the technical stuff, and it's a little bit beyond me. I know they're going to be on Twitter, and I know Elon's going to ask DeSantis some questions.
Uh-huh.
That's about what I know.
Okay, but the rest of us are more tech savvy than you. Raise your hand if you've ever been on a Twitter space. I think I'm probably the only one. And I think maybe for like 30 seconds. Back during COVID, there was, what was that, Clubhouse? It was like you could join like a chat room, but it was kind of like an audio chat room.
Was that invite only too?
Yes. Okay. And then Twitter kind of took over Clubhouse, and that's what Spaces is. So you can like join. I do know people are on there. I get weird notifications, but I probably haven't been on a Twitter space in since COVID, when I was like really bored and had nothing better to do. So
and now
I find it weird, but you do you find it weird?
No, not. And it's weird because that's weird that I don't find it weird, because it's a tech kind of thing, and they're going on Twitter Spaces. So I don't is this something we can watch on Twitter tonight, or are we just listening to the conversation between DeSantis and Musk?
I think Spaces is just audio, I thought, but again, I haven't been on it.
Houseworth,
recently.
what do you know?
I've been so busy with the Forest Village thing and everything going on in Columbia. I've heard of it and I'm familiar with it. The only thing I would add on this is that if you're running for president, regardless of who you are, I say you do it in a traditional, like a Iowa or New Hampshire. I'm not sure. I understand he wants tech and stuff, but I don't know. I just don't.
So you find it weird.
I find it weird, and I find it, there's a lot of people who aren't on Twitter.
I'm a traditionalist. Like, I want the flag waving in the background. I want like a big microphone. I want like
the press can answer questions, and not, no offense to Elon Musk, but I'd rather have Bob Schieffer or Ann Compton or John Chancellor asking questions down there. Of course, I'm from the old school.
You'd probably have Walter Cronkite or David Brinkley asking questions. What about you, Marsh?
Well, I don't know. When we talk DeSantis, he's, other than Trump, the only guy, really, when you get down to it, who's got any kind of a chance in the GOP presidential primary. But, I think a combination of, like Brian talked about, with the traditional standing up in front of the flag and the mics and all, and then the social media side together is probably not a bad mix.
My understanding is perhaps he's going to do it in the reverse. Like, this is going to be kind of like, the first thing, but then isn't he talking to Fox and like Trey Gowdy later or something, and then he's going to go probably visit those other states. So I agree. It just feels weird. And then also, I think like, man, Elon Musk must be like pretty confident, because how big is the biggest Twitter space? I don't know. That has happened so far. But maybe DeSantis is smart, because the top 2 Twitter spaces, according to some random website, because there's not like an official, according to this website that I found, was 2.7 million and 2.2 million on these spaces. Both involved Elon Musk, though. And so if the DeSantis people are like, how do we get a big crowd? They know Elon draws viewers. So again, the top one, and one dealt with the Twitter files. One was an Elon Q&A about advertising in the future. So 2.7 million. Then I thought, you know what? How many people watch Trump's town hall?
Oh,
Any
yeah.
idea?
3 million?
3.3 million. So if you can get 3 million on Twitter Spaces and you're reaching a younger demographic, I assume.
Hannah in the younger demographic, what are your thoughts? And I'm surprised as one of the older folks here in the room, like, I have no problem with this. I just think it's the next new thing. And I think it's weird that I think that because I'm in the minority here this morning.
No, I don't think it's the next new thing because I think if that was the case, it would have happened already since Twitter Spaces have been a thing for a couple years now. I see Twitter Spaces all the time on the app, and I've never explored. It's not just, I don't know. And Stephanie's the only one in the room, obviously, that's ever used it. So I think it's an odd choice. It feels very like a low-budget launch.
Well, and then the other thing I wonder, because I think, yeah, it's the next thing. And by the way, the dude's in his 40s, slightly older than Stephanie Bell, younger than Houseworth, myself, and Marsh, older than producer Hannah. DeSantis in his 40s. Kind of apparently one of the knocks on him, he's not very good at the meet and greets. And I don't know if he's shy or if he's like just doesn't like people, doesn't like glad handing.
We got a text from listener Mike at 874-9390. He said, would you all be spending so much time on the DeSantis announcement if he did it the traditional way?
Oh,
Boom.
Smart.
Good question.
I think I would argue probably yes, we would. I really would. I mean, it is newsworthy, and he is going to be a formidable candidate, but I still think former President Trump's going to be the front runner. One thing about Governor DeSantis that people that people may not realize, President Obama carried Florida twice in 08 and 12, and that was a big, because Florida traditionally has been a swing state, but it has moved to the Republican column pretty solidly. When DeSantis, and I can't remember the guy's name, in 2018 there was a candidate, he ended up getting kind of in a scandal himself, the Democrat did, but it was a really close race. But DeSantis is very popular in Miami, South Florida, with the Cuban community, the Cuban American community. They have a lot of clout, and they're Hispanics. I mean, in those you do well in those Hispanics in Miami and South Florida. Maybe he's hoping he can translate that nationwide.
James, via text 874-9390. I think Elon Musk gives us the best chance for an unbiased interview. Remember, Elon Musk admitted. It's almost like it's a bad thing. You come out of the closet and admitted, I voted for Biden in 2020. Elon Musk, who voted for Biden, James says he gives the best chance for an unbiased interview. He says, I'm excited for it.
Okay, Hannah.
My question about the social angle is something we don't forget. Well, it was just a month ago that President Biden posted that he'd seek a second term in office, and he put that video up on his social media site. So... Yeah. Maybe, this is nothing out of the ordinary.
And that video, and let's face it, that did not get that much press attention at the time. It just really didn't. And I think it was a short video, as I recall. It's maybe 3 minutes.
So, Hannah, say you're Branden and you want to watch the Twitter Spaces tonight. I'm on the Twitter app. Like, I don't know where to, like, I'm looking at the sidebar. Like, how do I find the Twitter Spaces? I've got lists, I've got search, I've got... popular stuff. I don't know how I would, and I feel like I'm pretty tech savvy, but there's not like a button for Spaces. So when it goes live, will it just be like a banner across the top? How did we get there?
I was looking at that too, actually. It's not a button that you click.
Trump PAC has some ads.
DeSantis took a commanding lead, and it propelled him to being elected governor.
I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do.
You're welcome, Ron. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career. Isn't it time DeSantis remembers how he got to where he is?
Make America great again. Big league. So good. Build the wall. Then Mr. Trump said, you're fired.
And I don't know if that's AI-generated stuff on there. We're going to be talking about AI coming up 6:50. I don't know if that's AI-generated stuff, but I will say this. It's pretty good. I will also say this. I think DeSantis is a better choice than Trump. Trump could only do one term. Does that make him a lame duck? If he gets elected on day one, he can only do one term. DeSantis is younger and I think has more appeal to the independents and the tweeners and stuff like that. Yesterday, man, an incredible, tense 9 hour standoff in Colombia yesterday. Think about this scene. You had numerous law enforcement personnel. You had people that could not get into their apartment. Law enforcement using gas. They're getting fired at. There's hostages that are apparently in this apartment. They're trying to negotiate. They're on the cell phone with this dude who's accused of a burglary at a woman's home, shooting her. She later died. What a crazy scene yesterday.
It really was. I mean, it was right here in mid-Missouri, not some faraway town. The Columbia Police Department was there. They negotiated with the suspect. He's accused of firing at them first, and then they're accused of not accused. They said they returned fire. They believe it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but 9 hours yesterday at the Forest Village apartment complex. Now that is near Jimmy's Steakhouse. To give you some idea where it is, there's a Murray's restaurant, if people are familiar with that is in that area, and people could not get in and out. He has a criminal history. He has been to prison, Jermaine Burnett, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. He's the suspect or a suspect or the suspect, they're being very vague, in the Monday incident that involved Ms. Jago over in the Highlands.
And we don't know the story because Columbia Police said the other night, they said, we believe this act was intentional. I don't know that we get some clarification. The guy who allegedly went to the woman's house and went there, did they know each other? Did they have a previous relationship? Crazy scene. And God bless the people in law enforcement, man. What an incredible scene yesterday. They're all safe. They're all okay, and they protected the community. And that's why I get upset when you get some of these Democrat politicians here in mid-Missouri that, in effect, get onto social media, lambaste police, and don't support them. And then go to a thing. There was a Boone County Democrats did an event last night on gun legislation or something, and you had people like David Tyson Smith and some other Democrat lawmakers from right here in mid-Missouri. They all went to that. Not one of those people, not one of them, went to that seminar last week, including Mayor Barbara Buffalo of Columbia, who on social media lambasted police, in my opinion. She was not at that seminar last week. That speaks very poorly for the city of Columbia.
Brandon, one other very important note, very important, and I hope our progressives hear what I'm about to say that are listening. The suspect in the case yesterday, Burnett, had a criminal history. By law, he should not have had a gun. By law, he should not have had a gun. Period.
Brian Hausworth. Coming up, Daily D.C. Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Biden is set to appoint some new folks into some highly
Increases now, to me, signals they don't quite know what they're doing. The good news is Kevin McCarthy has a very, very strong hand.
That is Representative Michael Burgess, Republican from Texas, talking about the debt ceiling. It's like a cough. Talks yesterday. Productive, like going to your doctor's office. Productive. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Is it productive, though? I feel like we're having the same conversation over and over. And this quote by McCarthy really kind of freaks me out because at first he said, look, we've got to get a commitment that we stop spending so much. Maybe what we do is we just hold the line at, this year's spending. At least that would prevent, spending in the future. But this quote today said they've got to acknowledge that we're spending too much. Not that they don't have to spend too much, but they have to at least acknowledge that we are spending too much. I'm like, is that backing off some?
I demand you apologize to me.
I don't like that. I think we should. I think we should try to negotiate for lower spending, and I think acknowledging that we spend too much is very different than actually spending less. And so I think a lot of conservatives will be disappointed if we don't get some sort of concession on this before June 1. But obviously a lot at stake with government potentially defaulting.
So this is what it's like. It's like saying, John, you spend too much money, and John going, I know. And then, John, so what are you doing about it?
Print more money.
There we go. Well, Biden is going to, he's chosen a new leader for the National Security Agency and U.S. Cyber Command. Do you know what this position does, Brandon?
Cybersecurity.
It sounds really important. Air Force Lieutenant General Timothy Hogg, he is the current deputy commander, is going to replace Nakasone. And he has been in that position since May 2018. You might be wondering what they're doing. Of course, they're focusing on foreign influence in American elections, but they're also looking at those things that we have talked about, like infrastructure type malware attacks where they were going after hospital systems and fuel pipelines. And those things really do freak me out. So I'm glad, we've got somebody looking into this because it's kind of gone quiet, but I think those are a real point of weakness for us. But also, they'll be looking at U.S. efforts to bolster Ukraine cybersecurity and sharing information with Ukraine. On that front, this didn't get as many headlines as I thought it would. But last week at the G7, Biden said, hey, we're going to give a new $375 million military aid package to Ukraine. And we've talked about how much money they've already given to Ukraine. Interestingly, though, the public is largely supportive of that. There's a new study out from University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy, and they're saying half of the people support the Pentagon's supply of weapons to Ukraine. The majority of Republicans and Democrats think Russia was in the wrong, that the invasion was wrong. And 3 in 4 people say that, the U.S. should play some role in supporting Ukraine.
We always have polls for what they're worth. And I think there's some usefulness to polls, but I wonder, should they start delineating? By the way, we polled, 1,300 intelligent people. I'm just wondering if that's reasonable.
But we hear these calls for, hey, we've got to reduce spending, but hey, and we've got all these problems at home, but hey, let's give some other country all this money. Those things seem inconsistent to me. And I would have guessed that maybe the polls would have showed maybe over time said, hey, we tried in the beginning, but maybe now we should back off a little bit. But that's really not what the data is saying. At the same time, we're watching Twitter Spaces. I did find the button on the app. Yes. There is a button down at the bottom where you can watch the Ron DeSantis announcement with Elon Musk tonight. Very exciting.
And later in the show, Stephanie will school all of us on exactly how to do that if you want to see that announcement tonight. Debt ceiling, Aaron Hedlund, great economist, joining us 6:30.
president here because obviously the situation that everyone in Washington is trying to avoid is the possibility of a default, which could have huge economic consequences, financial consequences. And so that's definitely could not be construed a win by anyone involved.
Andrew Duran writes for the Wall Street Journal. He was on America This Morning, which you can hear every weekday morning starting at 4 o'clock here on the radio station, talking to Gordon Deal saying this is a no-win. Want to bring in the guy I call a famed economist, Aaron Hedlund, Show Me Institute, worked within the Trump administration a couple of years ago. Do you agree with what Andrew Duran is saying there? He says basically this is a no-win for Mr. Biden.
Well, the no-win really happened last November when the public rejected the Biden administration's policies. So really the question is, can he rise above the ideological agenda and have a win for the country, which is to avoid a debt default now and put a path to not having debt default later.
All right. And then, so I'm thinking somebody listening, 6:37, heading into work this morning, whatever it is they're doing, and they're wondering, okay, how we keep talking about this debt ceiling and talks are productive and still really no movement, and somebody going, how is this potentially going to affect me? How do you answer that question?
So first of all, I think some historical context is interesting here. It used to be the case that Congress had to vote to approve like every single bill that was, every single treasury that was issued. Right. So the debt ceiling is sometimes painted as this kind of radical thing, but in reality, it actually made things a lot more streamlined. And it's the one tool that has actually helped create spending discipline over the years. Now, how would it affect the public if we don't raise the debt ceiling? Well, unfortunately, the government's raising spending way beyond its means. There's no practical way to go to a balanced budget tomorrow. So what it would mean is, I mean, the first thing you would see is the stock market would totally crash. I mean, you would see a big drop in the stock market, be very, very noticeable, and credit markets would kind of be disrupted, and you see interest rates rising.
All right. Economist Aaron Hedlund hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. So see, you don't have to get on to AI this morning and say, how is this going to affect me? By the way, we are going to be talking about AI and how some of us are using it. We're doing that about 10 minutes from now. My take has been, it seems oftentimes over the years, debt ceiling, budget, we, the American people, we kind of get pushed to the edge of a cliff, and then all of a sudden they magically work it out. Is that too flippant of a view on this?
I mean, not entirely. I mean, I fully expect that they will come up with something. It would be bizarre to not, because, and first of all, let's be real here. The House has passed a bill to raise the debt ceiling. It's just that the Biden administration doesn't like the other stuff in that bill. So now the question is, what is the Biden administration willing to do? Because ultimately the buck stops with the president. If the country goes past that limit and a bunch of bad consequences happen, it's not going to be good for the president. So I fully expect that something will emerge out of this, and it, for everybody's sake, it better include some spending reforms, because even if all we do is raise the debt ceiling and change nothing else, that just means we keep on accumulating debt at an unsustainable pace, and we get to an unavoidable debt default in the future.
Now, in the past, we've gotten to these government shutdowns. I actually was in D.C. once for the government shutdown. It was really weird. And so I keep thinking, is this the same thing? And then I'm reading these articles. No, government shutdown is different than a default. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Yes, you're correct about that. So, in fact, even after we get through all this drama, and I fully expect that the debt ceiling will be raised, we are going to have a whole other set of showdowns essentially going into the fall, because that's when Congress will have to do appropriations and kind of authorize new spending. And if they can't come to an agreement, then that's when you get this possibility of shutdowns, because essentially the agencies run out of authorization to spend more, so they kind of have to stop operations for a period of time. The consequences of breaching the debt ceiling would be definitely worse than a shutdown. I mean, shutdown is fodder for TV news, and there's no doubt there's some annoyances associated with that. But it'd be far more noticeable to the average person right away if we were to go past that debt ceiling.
Economist Aaron Hedlund joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Aaron, talk to us about maybe the history of this, going back to previous administrations and what happened when they had their debt ceiling battles before. I guess the question is, what's this mean to the average Mid-Missourian pocketbook-wise?
Well, assuming they come up with a deal, the average Missourian's not going to see a huge immediate impact. But you're right that this has happened many times in the past. Debt ceiling was raised the Trump administration. The debt ceiling was raised under the Obama administration. You can go back and back and back. And many, many times you've had this exact situation where you have negotiations that occur and the debt ceiling gets raised in conjunction with spending reforms, because it's one of those times that kind of focuses people's attention. It's really easy for members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate, to just kind of punt things. This is one of the things you can't punt. So that's why it's important that they kind of work something out.
Let me ask you this. Regardless of what happens, general American public, whatever happens here, does this have an effect? People start thinking about who they're voting for in 2024. Do you think this really sways the general public?
Well, I think if the country blasts past the debt ceiling without a deal, and you see the stock market really tank, and you see a lot of disruption in credit markets, and in fact the U.S. credit score essentially get downgraded, that can't be good for the White House's prospects. I mean, if you rewind time to 2020, President Biden essentially ran on this platform of, I'm a steady hand at the who can kind of lead this country and bring people together. And if you can't even bring people together to essentially avoid default, that kind of puts a chink in that armor. So I think it's in everybody's interest to get something passed here.
So a little bit off of the debt ceiling, but we've been watching the Fed raise the interest rates, and been talking to some folks locally, and it sounds like, with car loans and home loans and business loans, we're just not doing as much lending because those interest rates are so high. When will we start feeling the effects of that in the economy? And do you foresee those interest rates pushing even higher? Will the debt ceiling thing cause those interest rates to be pushed higher?
So if there's no deal on the debt ceiling, then yes, I do expect that interest rates will go higher, not because of the Fed raising rates, but just because of credit markets contracting and all sorts of disruption and it being harder to borrow. But I think we're already seeing the effects of the interest rate hikes that the Fed has engineered, because it is more expensive to borrow. People are not borrowing as much, not spending as much, and that is both bringing down inflation. It needs to come down faster, but it is coming down. But it also slows down the economy. That's the painful way to bring down inflation, right? That's the only tool that the Fed has, which is to basically make spending more expensive so people do less of it. The alternative, which requires an act of Congress and the White House, is to have a more supply-side approach that increases the incentive to produce and work and explore energy and all that. And that would bring down inflation and increase growth, but that is not consistent with, unfortunately, the progressive ideology over the past couple of years.
Let me ask you this, Aaron, before we let you go. What is it in your mind that Democrats, progressives, they just seem to have a distaste for cutting spending? Now, I think back to years ago when I racked up all my credit cards. I didn't know what I kept spending and spending. People kept saying, Branden, here's what, because I would ask people, what do I do? I got all this money going out. I don't have as much coming in. What do I do? And here's the number one answer I got, Aaron. I was told, quit spending so much. It's really simple. Why the distaste amongst progressives to cut spending?
Well, I mean, they fundamentally believe that we should look more like Europe in terms of size of government. I mean, that's really the main thing that's come out of the past couple of years, is that spending as a share of GDP, discretionary spending as a share of GDP, essentially has gone up by 20%. And the White House's position right now is we need to kind of lock that in. Like moving back down to where things were pre-COVID is not acceptable. We need to lock that in. And it tries to paint the House's bill as very radical, when in reality all the House's bill does is it caps spending growth and returns to a little bit closer to normal before. It's not anything radical whatsoever. But again, the left has a vision. They want to fundamentally change. They want to make it so that you can get income without working. They don't think energy production is good unless it's the type of clean energy that they like. And they're willing to use the levers of power to get there.
All right. Aaron Hedlund, economist, teaches economy at Mizzou, does a whole lot of stuff. He's with the Show Me Institute. Anything else you feel like you need to add that somebody needs to know this morning?
I think we summarized it pretty well.
All right, you did, because I understand what you're saying. And that's what we like about Aaron Hedlund. He can explain this stuff to us like we are 2 years old. Thank you for your time here this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Thanks for having me on.
By the way, Aaron was talking about they want to be more like Europe and these people that think the planet is going to end tomorrow because, greenhouse emissions and all that good stuff. Here's how they deal with stuff in Europe.
Go to hell, shell, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Go to hell, come back no more.
Board meeting, Shell shareholders, and that's how progressives do. They just go and disrupt and sing great songs like
Go to hell, shall.
They're just crazy, man.
Where's Ray Charles when you need him?
Amen. I want to mention this really quick before we move forward. We've been encouraging people. We've had several lawmakers talking about AM radio. Some of the major automobile makers want to get rid of AM radio, specifically in electric vehicles. They're saying, well, we just don't see any value. And the feds say, well, you know, the emergency alert system and conservative talk, incidentally. You made a difference. We have encouraged people to call congressmen to get something done. Ford is deciding to keep AM radio on 2024 models, and they're going to restore AM to a couple of electric vehicles from 2023. So that's the power of radio. The other thing I want to tell you about, Lara Wakefield joined us a couple of weeks ago. She is an advocate for parents, especially parents that have kids with disabilities. And we were talking about this story out of the Hallsville School District that has garnered some national headlines of allegations of abuse. And basically it was swept under the carpet. She came on the show here. Check this out. This is directly from Laura Wakefield. She says, good news, DFS, Division of Family Services, reopened the Hallsville case. Got pressured from State Rep Cherie Tolson-Reich and from me to reopen the case. I told them I would keep going on the radio and I would start naming names of the adults covering up the abuse on your show.
How about that?
The power of radio. All right, coming up a few minutes from now. How are you using AI? Are you using it? Any AI, any artificial intelligence? It's my best new friend right now. And we're going to use that coming about 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
that I have, or just to mess around or something like that. But other than that, I don't really use AI that much.
That last dude sounds like me. I used to get on there when I'm bored and lonely, get on to ChatGPT or Google's Bard and say, hey, ChatGPT, what you doing? What's up? People using ChatGPT. John, have you had an opportunity to use this besides the realm of just playing around with it to see what it can do?
No, mainly just playing around with it to see what it could do. And then, like Brian and I said, I know we messed around a little with it, writing news stories, then spent more time fact-checking for the incorrect facts they added into the news story than was really, really worth the time savings.
And there's a lot of folks, and as a 52-year-old dude who's not technically savvy and do very little on the social medias with the exception of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri page.
And if you needed any proof of that, he just said, on the social medias.
But this ChatGPT stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. And people say all the time, well, this is dangerous. Social media, the Surgeon General yesterday, social media is dangerous for kids. Well, there are a lot of things it's dangerous for people, and people are, AI is dangerous. It's going to take over the world, and everything's dangerous. It's just the next thing. That's where I am with it.
Cable TV was the end of television.
That's right. Oh, my gosh.
Remember that uproar and furor when that all came out?
FM radio. That was going to be the downfall of AM radio. That never materialized. Never did. As a matter of fact, this incredible, massive movement that was in Congress and sparked by the American people, you've got now at least one automaker saying, okay, we're not going to get rid of AM radio in cars.
I find myself in a weird position this morning because Brandon's like, I think it's totally cool that DeSantis is doing Twitter Spaces, and I'm totally not freaked out by AI. And I usually you're the conspiracy theorist, and I'm like, I don't.
He ran out of tinfoil this morning.
I guess, because I think an announcement on Twitter Spaces like Brian, I agree with Brian. I think it's weird. And I am totally freaked out. I mean, and I haven't used it as much as you, Brandon, because
he's intimately familiar with
I'm
AI.
Busy or something. But no, and I think for legal stuff, it is for fun, and I think it can be helpful. But I agree, and even the people who founded it are like, yeah, we might have let the cat out of the bag. Yeah.
Shouldn't have done that.
So I am freaked out. I can't believe you are not.
I don't even know who you are, Brandon. Sounds like something Hannah would say. I'm all for this Twitter Space thing tonight with DeSantis announcing that he's going to be officially running for president. I'm okay.
Now, you say you're all for it. Does that mean you will be participating?
In the ChatGPT?
In the Twitter Spaces?
No. No, there's actually I'm not doing that, but I'll get y'all's report. No, I will try to find a way to watch that tonight. Here's how we
listen. You can't watch it.
It's audio.
We'll figure it out. It'll be before the thing starts, and I'll be calling Hannah or Stephanie. Hey,
I'm not answering.
How's this thing work?
What do I punch on there?
So here's how we use ChatGPT. We wrote some poetry for Hannah, a rap song for Brian Houseworth, a limerick. John Marsh. Stephanie felt a little left out.
Oh, I got a song.
Got a song. And I did a country song. And Hannah is going to sing some of it.
No.
No. You want me to sing?
Yeah, you did so well with Brian's song.
And that was a rap song.
Oh.
That was good, though.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Thank you, John. And I'm not a singer, by the way. All right. ChatGPT wrote a country song for Stephanie Bell.
Aww.
In the heart of mid-Missouri where the sun shines bright, there's a voice that wakes up each morning bringing us to light.
Aww.
Stephanie Bell, the co-host, with a smile so true. She's the one who's got the country spirit, and she'll sing it just for you. Chorus now. Stephanie Bell, oh, won't you sing a country song? Wake up mid-Missouri, let the melody roll along. With your warmth and charm, you bring us joy and cheer. Obviously, artificial intelligence still needs some work.
Oh, come
on. Stephanie Bell, the country girl, we are so glad you're here.
Oh, that's sweet.
Aww. Man, old Uncle Scotty down the hall has nothing on you.
And that's how we use ChatGPT here on the show. I'm sure the founders would be proud. Coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock, Raven Harrison. She's incredible with her hot takes on conservative politics. Progressives, big question for Raven Harrison. Scale of 1 to 10 this morning. Does she think anybody has a chance at beating Donald Trump? She joins us. Hear her answer coming up at 7:10.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
DeSantis took a commanding lead, and it propelled him to being elected governor.
I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do.
You're welcome, Ron. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career. Isn't it time DeSantis remembers how he got to where he is?
Make America great again. Big league. So good. Build the wall. Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired."
I don't know how much of that is DeSantis actually saying that stuff or how much of that video and audio is AI generated, but that's an ad from a Trump PAC, and this was going after DeSantis even prior to him announcing yesterday that today he is going to be announcing Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com. She's joining us. We're going to be talking about that. Still nothing on the debt limit talks. Here's the word they used yesterday. This is going to sound familiar to you. Productive. Stephanie brings up a beautiful point. How can we go day after day, McCarthy and Biden say the talks have been productive when I don't see anything? We are covering that for you, too. One of the other things we're doing for you this morning, do you share passwords for like just about anything? Whether it's a news source, banking information, we have a stern warning for you coming up. 7:35 this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell back, producer Hannah, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, and Raven Harrison. Man, I love her take on politics, whether it be conservative, progressive stuff. Raven, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Let's start here. So DeSantis is no surprise, but he's doing this thing tonight on Twitter. I'm in the minority this morning. All of my friends here say this is not a good idea for DeSantis. I think it's just the next thing in technology. How did you react to this?
I agree with you, Brandon. I think it's just the next thing. I mean, this has been a long-awaited announcement, and I've been calling this for a while for the people who were saying he's just fundraising just in case. And I said, just in case what? In case he accidentally becomes president? Nobody accidentally fundraises. So we've been knowing for a while, and we knew that it needed to wait till after the May session so he could remain governor. So this is just the next step. He's been taking some shots at Trump. Trump's been taking some shots at him. So we've known for a while that he was going to jump in.
Now, I don't know that I would say it's a bad idea, but I think it's weird. Have you been on Twitter Spaces? Are you familiar? Are you planning on tuning in tonight?
I have to kind of be abreast of what's going on. But yes, I don't think it's that out of the realm, only because Twitter now has the reputation for being much more open and an actual platform for free speech since Elon Musk took over. But I do think it's just kind of the next evolution. He's got to have a different strategy besides just taking Trump head to head. There has to be something else.
Well, and he's been, fighting with Disney, so maybe this is kind of like the middle finger to the mainstream media. Is that what statement he's making?
That's definitely part of it because, he's been fighting and to show that he's really, really on the side of conservatives and free speech and the Constitution. So I think that that's exactly what it is because we know overwhelmingly that the press, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 93% of the coverage that Trump got was negative.
Do you think do you think Elon Musk is the right person to do the interview?
I think given where Twitter is now, absolutely. I mean, it's just he is currently the CEO of Twitter. He has shown that he's been willing to expose some corruption that has gone on and some malfeasance that's gone on with Twitter. So I think him being the one to interview DeSantis is very, very logical and pretty appropriate. However, I do feel like since there have been some questions about Elon Musk, now they're bringing in somebody who's, tied to mainstream media. It's now getting a very underwhelming response to Twitter.
Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com. You see her on Fox Television. You hear her on radio stations all across America. She's hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Raven, the GOP preference poll that Fox News put up showed Trump with like 56% to 19% for DeSantis, and I guess that was a month or so ago before DeSantis had ever announced and all. What would it take for him to get the nomination?
I think statistically that it is highly unlikely, only because of we see the current trajectory. You know, Trump has a commanding lead and has since the very beginning. He's been in the race since the beginning, and I feel like the best we can hope for is for DeSantis to posture himself for after Trump has his term. I mean, I just don't see statistically how that's going to work out. He's very popular, and for a long time, people wanted a Trump-DeSantis ticket more than anything, but that is looking more and more unlikely by the day as we have shots fired.
Raven Harrison is hanging out with us. Scale of 1 to 10, anybody, not just DeSantis, anybody on the GOP side, Scott, Haley, Hutchison, Pence, scale of 1 to 10, does anybody have a chance at beating Trump in the GOP primary?
In the era of trying to appear objective, because it's just looking at it factually, I would say a 1 at best. They're just, you know, even though DeSantis will likely gain ground and they will kind of jostle, you know, Trump has been lapping the field. They know, I mean, Trump is a known quantity. DeSantis is a known quantity. Here's what's in play. What's in play is every single person who has jumped in the Republican field is campaigning on being able to do what Trump has already done. That is the biggest thing. And now we see where the country is going, the economy is going, where the border is going, where inflation is going. People want that certainty that of the things that Trump had already delivered: an economy, low unemployment, almost energy independent. I mean, we were so much better as a country, and people are wanting that back. They want that security back. They want those numbers back, and they want the ease at the pump and the grocery store.
Raven, let me ask you this. Do you laugh as hard as I do when I see Biden approval ratings and he's got like maybe 30% of the country approves of what he's doing? Do you laugh as hard as I do going, who the hell is that 30%?
I do, and then I remind myself that 9 out of 4 Bidens voted for him.
And as we talk about the debt ceiling stuff, in your mind, what is it these progressives and Democrats, they just have, it's like cut spending. It's a hard no. It's no, full stop, no. Why this progressive mindset? Well, we can't cut spending. Why is that?
Well, it is a mindset of entitlement, and we've seen it grow, you know, over the generations. But this is essentially what it is. I liken it to this. You know, if you have a teenager and they have a credit card and they max out their credit card, I mean, what is the strategy there? I can tell you statistically, factually, historically, the Democrats will say, you know, okay, well, let's raise the limit and don't do that again. You're going to have to be more careful, but we're going to raise your limit. And the Republicans are going to say, hey, there's a lawnmower out there and a yard full of grass. Go nuts. You know, and that's what people are missing is this is Congress's fundamental number one job is to pass a balanced budget, and they have not done that since 96. Instead, we have these reconciliation packages, these omnibuses, these riders. They just keep spending and spending and spending, and the problem is there's no plausible way, and every Democrat who is sidestepping needs to understand this. There's never been a time when somebody has spent their way out of debt. You cannot spend your way out of debt. So the only way to get this in is to rein it in. And just for numbers, Brandon, $31 trillion we have in debt right now equates to $1 trillion we pay in interest.
That's a lot of interest. And again, back to the analogy of telling the teen, just quit spending and go out and work. I've been trying to track what's happening at the border. Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas had said, hey, after we lift Title 42, it's going to be chaotic for a while. It's going to be crazy. And then when it didn't happen, they blamed the news outlets for saying, well, you all said it was going to be chaotic. And then we played the audio from Joe Biden saying it's going to be chaotic for a while. It's not materializing. What I see in most of the national news outlets, here's the story, and I'll tell you up front, I think it's BS. They're saying, well, these folks that are trying to come here illegally, they understand there's harsher consequences now, so they're rethinking that. I don't buy that. You're in Texas. What do you know?
I know that that's unequivocally false. It is garbage. So when he says it did not materialize, that is also false. We know that just before, in the days leading up to Title 42 expiring and the days after, we saw record 10,500 apprehensions. So that's the ones we caught that came through the border. What we know now is the stream is approximately 4,500 per day. It is a steady stream. So what they have done is they've used this app, this CBP1, saying, well, they're coming through legal ports of entry. No, they're being illegally directed through legal ports of entry. They are still coming in illegally. They are still breaking the law. So what they are doing is they're registering, quote, on this app, and then they're sending them anywhere they want to go. They're giving them cell phones with unlimited minutes, and they're saying, here's a summons to appear in court in 12 years. We have migrants who've been given court dates of 2035 to appear back in court for breaking our laws and being in the country illegally. I can't remember what I did 12 minutes ago.
Sound like my kind of friend. I don't know. It was 10 minutes ago. And this is important, by the way, with this illegal immigration. John and I were covering big bust of fentanyl right close to the bridge going into Jefferson City. And now another dude has been arrested with almost 30 blue pills marked Oxy M30. So this is happening here in mid-Missouri. We know the fentanyl comes from Mexico. It comes through that secure border that Alejandro Mayorkas is always talking about. These things matter. Raven Harrison, do yourself a favor. Check out her website. I think you're definitely going to dig it. It's why she's here on the show, ravenharrison.com. Anything else that you would like to add before we let you go?
It's just to remind people that we have to do, it's compassionate to take care of our country. It's compassionate to secure our border, and just not to believe, you know, the left and right. We have sanctuary cities declaring federal emergencies, asking for money, but then they want to raise the debt limit without spending. So just tell Americans it's not an R or a D. It's common sense. It's protecting America.
Raven Harrison, you want to hang out again next week?
Would love it.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And remember, if something happens to Joe, by the way, prior to 2024, this is who's in charge.
Without semiconductors, your smartphone would not be a smartphone. It would be a paperweight that occupies a big space in your pocket.
Pretty profound, eh, Marsh? Gosh.
Why is
I think
she
the
obsessed?
same argument's been made for the vice president.
Yeah, my goodness.
She said occupies a big space in her. Why is she obsessed with size? Because it was like the Ukraine is a big, or the Russia is a big country next to the Ukraine, which is smaller.
Because all women are. That's why, Steph. Come on.
It's weird.
Actually, I don't think women, it's dudes really that are.
is.
Yeah. It's like you get a weathercaster on the TV saying, we got 6 inches of snow. I'm like, dude, that was not 6 inches. I promise you. Coming up a few minutes from now, Morning Bell Business News, little twist.
Wait a minute.
Careful.
Oh, what's hot with Hannah? Sorry, I'm an hour ahead of ourselves.
Gee, thanks.
Coming up, 8:25, Morning Bell Business News. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. Dow is down 231 points. Yesterday, we'll look at futures and some interesting news that you can use. Also, 7:35, do you share passwords? You want to hear this story. Meanwhile, we are getting ready for What's Hot with Hannah.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Sorry.
Kraft is giving us a solution to a problem that I didn't know we had.
And we're going to figure out what the problem is in that solution. Which means it's
7:26.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Wah,
I tried. That's what's important. I tried. Not real hard, but I tried to be on time.
I mean, it's the thought that counts, I guess. Kraft singles, the American cheese slices.
Europeans freak out by the fact that we have processed cheese that's wrapped in plastic.
It's so processed that it doesn't really melt. It just kind of gets a little gooey.
Like Europeans, they can laugh at the politics, they laugh at all that stuff, but the biggest thing that they dislike about Americans is our cheese, processed cheese.
Well, and Kraft singles, I feel like, are an American classic. No pun intended.
And nothing makes better mac and cheese than Velveeta. But if you actually look at Velveeta and think what is this exactly?
It's not even refrigerated.
That's a good point. What exactly, and I don't mean to derail What's Hot with Hannah, because we have a solution to a problem we didn't know we had. What is Velveeta? How do they form that thing? It's like Spam. I wonder, Spam, you can get a can of Spam, you can bounce Spam off the floor. I wonder if you could do the same with Velveeta cheese.
Yes.
So Kraft cheese, we're talking about the singles. They come in 3 flavors. It's Swiss cheese, American cheese, and American cheese with 2% milk.
Swiss cheese. Which one is the neon orange powder? That's the classic, right?
Oh, yeah, the Kraft powdered mac and cheese dust.
Yeah.
But for the singles, Kraft has announced that they are revamping the packaging due to essentially customer complaints about the singles being too hard to open. And I'm sitting here thinking, have I ever struggled to open a slice of Kraft cheese?
It's too hard.
And I don't think I have. It's pretty easy. Is it annoying when you're trying to unwrap several slices? Yes.
Mom, will you open this for me? It's too hard.
So how is the packaging changing? Because there's that off-brand where you get all the slices and they're not individually wrapped. And then it is just they kind of stick to each other and it is like a giant block of Velveeta and they say it's sliced. Have you bought that off-brand before?
No.
I have.
And
On
then you try to
accident.
peel the slices apart and it's a disaster.
Well, don't worry, Stephanie. The singles are still going to be wrapped in plastic. But they're adding a textured flap to the edge of the wrapper that you tear to make it easier to open them, and that seems like such a waste to me.
This is for your generation because I'm sure they ate Tide Pods and everything else. They probably ate the plastic, and it's probably lawyers probably got involved and they're worried about people eating the plastic wrapper. I'm blaming you because weren't they doing that with fruit roll-ups? They were we're going to freeze this, but oops, we forgot to take the plastic off, and now we're eating the plastic film.
Yeah, that was a thing for a little bit.
Yes.
This should be our next question on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. By the way, you can watch the show on our Facebook page. You can also watch on our YouTube channel.
At Wake Up in Missouri.
We should freeze the fruit roll-ups because that's been a thing, and then freeze a piece of single-wrapped American cheese and eat that. Important stuff this morning.
Now, the cheese wrappers are annoying because they always fly off the counter and stick to everything, but not hard to open.
Debt ceiling, that's not important. New packaging for Kraft macaroni and cheese, that's important stuff. Coming up,
singles, the cheese slices.
Singles.
Whatever.
You share passwords with friends and family, I don't know, maybe strangers. Kind of a warning you want to heed. That's coming about 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I think just local news is the most important stuff to me.
white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
White supremacy. He's lying. And also, remember, he said that at a commencement ceremony for a historically black college. So he's got this audience, this captive audience of black students saying, the number one problem, white supremacy, oh, yeah. And then remember, Biden also said...
And I'm not saying this because I'm at a black HBCU.
Yeah, you are. About that, John, did you hear about this potential, an attempted terrorist attack near the White House?
Yeah, the guy he was a white supremacist, I guess. That was their take on it. Some kid from Chesterfield, right?
Yeah, and he's not white, by the way. His name is Sai Varshith Kandula. He's 19 years old from here in Missouri, outside of St. Louis. Had the U-Haul truck, was across from the White House and spewing some crazy stuff. Number one threat, white supremacy. Way to go, Joe. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Marsh, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. And yourself?
I'm doing excellent, and thank you for asking. Totally unscripted. What about Steph? Good to have you back today.
3, 2, 1.
Glad to be back.
By the way, Steph, she's killing it on the fingernails today. Where you get your nails did. I'm interested in this stuff now since I got a pedicure a couple of weeks ago. Now,
it's like neon light pink.
That's beautiful. You can hold that up to the camera for folks watching on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Brian Hausworth is here. There is producer Hannah.
Brandon's going to show up with pink nail polish tomorrow.
Ooh. Do you have an appointment
Toenail
to go back?
polish.
Marsh and I, instead of doing lunch today, we're going to go and get the feet done.
You should
You're
totally
going to the
go.
place with the little fish that nibble at you.
Welcome to the show. We are so glad you are here. Before we get on to the next thing, I want to mention this. I think this is important for a while now. We here, Zimmer Communications, have been encouraging you to call Congress people, to call whoever it is you know. We've had Mark Alford on. We've had Sam Graves on talking about AM radio. Some car makers have been wanting to get rid of AM radio in their electric vehicles, and people said, no, you can't do this. The emergency alert system, 4 years ago, Jefferson City, how important was AM radio then, John?
Pretty darn important when you get tornadoes blowing in and you're wondering about what is going to stay on the air.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And I can tell you, as a listener at that time, working at the Missouri Net, I was listening to John and you guys on KWS 950 AM during that coverage as I was in the Missouri Net newsroom, not only reporting on that tornado, but the one in Golden City. Very, very important. Ford had a big announcement yesterday.
So it worked. Whatever y'all did, man, it worked. Ford says we're going to keep AM radio on 2024 models, and I think that's huge. For a couple of, so thank you for calling. Thanks for getting involved. That's what we talk about. We say get involved, do something. You can call somebody. You can go to these events. But I think that's important. So they caught enough flack because people took part. And also this, Lara Wakefield. She's an advocate for parents of kids with disabilities here in mid-Missouri. We had her on a couple of weeks ago, and there's a case in Hallsville that got some national news headlines. She joined us on the show, and it had to do with allegations about a young child being hit by a young child with special ed needs, allegedly being, in effect, abused in class, basically kind of swept under the rug. She came onto the show and saying, hey, you got to reopen this in Hallsville. You got to do something here because this happened allegedly at a school, taxpayer-funded school. Y'all tried to shush it up. They got pressured from State Rep Cherie Tolson-Reich and Lara Wakefield. And I want to read this message from Lara Wakefield. She said, I told them they are going to reopening it. Good. DFS is reopening the Hallsville case. Got pressured from Rep Tolson-Reich and from me to reopen. I told them I would keep going on the radio and I would start naming names of the adults covering up the abuse, and I would do this on your all's show. They changed their tune right quick. Kids are getting their rights to forensic interviews. Thanks for your help on this. And again, this is one of those, I'm not applauding us, but that's the power of local radio, AM radio, FM radio. That's the power of people getting involved.
Yeah, and for her, I hope she's listening. The one thing I would just very much caution her, she's always welcome to call, and you did a great job on that interview, and that's a huge deal. We just got to be careful no kids are mentioned by name when she's talking about everything like that. And she's the only one, and maybe the state representative, who'd be able to confirm that there is an investigation, because I can tell you, I worked for DSS. any of those investigations they're confidential. So if there is an investigation, she says there is, the department would not be able to confirm that but if they told her that, then obviously it's the case. So that is that's big.
Power of getting involved. We want to thank you, the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family, for getting involved in these things and really affecting change.
Hold them accountable.
Yeah. Say, hey, we're not just going to stand by and take this. And you can do it on a local level and then maybe a statewide level. And then you go to a national level and say, listen, you're not getting away with this anymore. And one of the ways you can utilize that stuff is local radio. Interesting text, too. Somebody wanting to know, we were talking about AM radio. They want to know where they can hear Ron DeSantis' presidential announcement on AM radio tonight. It's not on AM radio. It's on Twitter Spaces.
Twitter Spaces.
Interesting take on that. Glenn Youngkin, West Virginia governor. He was the one with schools, and he became governor. But also some interesting takes when he announced that he was running for governor. They did this big press conference. Remember what happened?
Well, he was asked about Trump, about nothing about Virginia, just about like national politics, and it really was off base. And so there's a tweet thread saying, hey, if you want to know why DeSantis is announcing on Twitter Spaces, this is a good example. Once Glenn Youngkin got asked all these questions that really didn't ask about his opponent, didn't ask about his policies, was just all focused on Trump by the mainstream media, he never did a press conference again the rest of the campaign, and then he won. And so they're saying, you have a little bit more control. I'm sure the DeSantis people have been talking to Elon Musk, I assume have a little bit more control over exactly what is going to go down today, as opposed to just, opening yourself up to a whole gaggle of reporters.
It's interesting. Just take a look at the 1976. You could look it up on your YouTube and watch the 1976 presidential debates and look at the quality of the questions that were asked in those debates of Ford and Carter in 1980, Reagan and Carter. Compare it to today. You can make your own decision as to the quality of the questions they were. And they asked tough questions of all the candidates.
So, yeah, it's not on AM radio tonight. It's on Twitter. One more interesting thing about this. So Ford was saying, well, as it relates to AM radio, we felt that it wasn't worth doing the AM radio. And here's why. They're saying after data collected from vehicles, you got one of those fancy vehicles that has all the computers and stuff on it. I don't. My car's almost as old as producer Hannah is.
My car is spying on me?
Yes, after data collected from vehicles. So you got these hooked up computerized cars, which are like smartphones on wheels anymore. They're getting that info on you, man. I have an issue with that. I'm very private and all that stuff, and I just think that's kind of weird. Do you share passwords?
No.
I've realized I've actually shared some stuff with Steph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has access to my Twitter account, which all of a sudden is a frightening thought. I forgot that I gave you access to my Twitter account. Marsh, oh my gosh. Hannah, you share any passwords?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Marsh?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Netflix. They're cracking down on you. Who shares a Netflix password?
I share my parents.
They share it with you, or you share it with them?
They share with me.
They're cracking down. They say that's why they're losing so much money.
I even did it with a co-worker for a while.
I think it's a common practice, and I think they're going to lose a lot of users over this. What they're saying is you can only have one per household, and I was thinking, how on earth are they going to enforce this? And what the interwebs is saying is that, if you have a device, so like Hannah, if you have your parents, then once a month, essentially, you would have to go check in on their home Wi-Fi to know that you guys live in the same house or whatever. And that's how it would tell them that you were in the same household. But, I have 3 kids, and most, I think, parents, as your kids go to college and stuff, they support their kids on phone plans and everything else. I would anticipate me paying for their Netflix when they go to college. But essentially, they could be in 3 different cities at that time, not coming back once a month to check in on the home Wi-Fi. And I think it would be ridiculous for me to have to pay for 4 Netflix accounts, separate Netflix accounts. Now, what they're saying is you can add an extra member, but you can only add 1. Why I got 3 kids? I mean, that seems unfair.
Is it wrong to say, hey, Netflix, it's none of your business who I share my passwords with. It's none of your business how I'm trying to rip you off, okay? That's
You're paying for the privilege, It's...
And and I think I know married people who work and have to commute. You think about people who take an important state job or a job there, and they're not in the same location, but they're the same family unit. Should they not be able to share Netflix? And I think that's wrong. But then I think, well, with traditional cable, if you're maintaining two households, like a lake house and a home, or two homes, then you do pay two separate cable bills. So, but I go back and forth. I think there's a better method than what they're currently proposing.
John, can I get your password for the Jefferson City News Tribune? I wonder how the newspaper, I wonder how they're doing with that. Coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So we heard about the NAACP says, hey, listen, we're putting out a travel advisory because Florida is a dangerous place to be. And it's BS. It's a publicity stunt. It's a Catherine Sass resigning from the Columbia Public School. It's a publicity stunt. There is another travel warning, and I think you'll find this one interesting. It's coming up 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 98.3 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS.
if you buy like a Tool or like Flonase, that stuff that's like,
Oh.
and you're going to like literally lose a finger trying to open this stuff with like, I mean, I wonder how many people are injured a year with that packaging.
Like the packaging that they put on new scissors that you need scissors to open.
Yes, exactly. Or an Exacto, how many people open that with like a knife or another tool?
And then stab yourself.
Yeah, the plastic is sharp enough to cut you.
Exactly. We need to, where are our legislators on that? We need to ban whatever the heck that's called.
Marsh is buying new scissors, reaching into his sock to grab his switchblade and cut that packaging open. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah. Brian Houseworth is here. That's Marsh. Something we can do for you. 874-9390, 874-9390. I thought this was kind of fun. So the NAACP's, oh, God, don't go to Florida. They're racist and all this. And so they issue a travel advisory, and I'm sure most people are not paying attention to it. Now, there's another travel advisory that's been issued. But this one I thought was kind of interesting. Senator Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, he has issued a formal travel advisory for socialists who are visiting Florida. Man, why didn't he run for president? That's a sharp burn.
Stay out of Tallahassee.
He warned the state is openly hostile to socialists and their enablers. Let me be clear. Any attempts to spread the oppression and poverty that socialism always brings will be rebuffed by the people of Florida. Travelers should be aware that attempts to spread socialism in Florida will fail, and it will be met with laughter and mockery.
I love this. This is like Amsterdam when they were like, hey, young guys, don't come here. We have a lot of weed and a lot of prostitutes. Don't come here.
You're not going to like it here. We got all the fun stuff that your mama warned you about. Don't come here. You aren't.
Crackers will meet you at the border.
Gosh. And, you know, he's not wrong when he says socialist. Look at what's happening with the debt limit right now. Democrats, they abhor the idea of, hey, let's look at our budget. Let's maybe there are some things we can cut. And hey, if you don't have any dependents and you're on some kind of social program, as Raven Harrison said earlier this morning, there's a lawnmower, there's a lawn, go cut. If you want to get these entitlements, and that is basically socialism. Rick Scott is not just trying to be funny. He is being incredibly spot on there. Did you, Marsh says my singing of Stephanie Bell's country song. I've been singing here on the radio show, and I have a horrible voice, never sing. So I used ChatGPT to do a rap song with Brian Houseworth, a poem for Hannah, and then a limerick for John Marsh. And I sang the rap song, Marsh, and then we sang a country song for Stephanie Bell. And it's rather beautiful. Marsh, which was better, the rap or the country performance?
I like the country performance.
I'm a fan
kind of Reba-esque.
I'm a fan of the rap one.
I thought I was better at the rap, and I don't sing. I get incredibly I'm just weird about that stuff.
I mean, my favorite was a country one because it was about me.
There you go.
We know this. As a matter of fact, I gave and this is, I don't know if y'all have been using ChatGPT, if you found an interesting, useful way to use that or any other AI. Would always love to hear from you via text 874-9390 as this becomes more and more prevalent. I'm not kidding. You get on to a lot of these news websites, whether it's USA Today, Fox, CNN, whatever it is, and there's a lot. It's just peppered with stories about this explosion of artificial intelligence, which Stephanie introduced us to last year. But it had to write songs for everybody, and it did a country song for Steph. Maybe we should do the two side by side a little bit after 8 o'clock and see which is better.
Okay.
I think they both suck equally. Equal amounts. A cup of this and a cup of that.
Branden Rathert's American Idol.
Hey, you can salute the troops with KWOS in Midmo Telecom. We'd love to talk about your family members who have served. Get onto the website, KWOS.com, and you can tell us about a veteran service member's name, what branch they served, and we could be talking about them here on the radio. Anything new with the debt limit talks? Fox News is going to get you covered on that. Coming up shortly here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
be a huge backlash from our entire House Democratic, caucus, certainly the progressives, but also in the streets. I think that it's important that we don't take steps back from the very strong agenda that the president himself shepherded and led over the last 2 years.
That's progressive Pramila Jayapal. She is a Democrat, Washington. She said there's going to be craziness in the streets if Biden, in effect, doesn't win this debt ceiling battle. And it's because people keep saying, finish the job. We've heard Joe Biden say, we got to finish this job when he announced he was running for president. Finish the job. And she said, we got to finish what we started. I don't know what these people are talking about.
Finish putting the economy in the toilet.
Finish the full conversion to socialism, maybe, John? I don't know what they're
Beats me.
But she and I don't know if that's something where she's there's going to be craziness in the streets. I'll bet you $1 million.
Whoa.
I'll bet you a week's worth of producer Hannah's salary.
No.
That the majority of people that vote for people like a Pramila Jayapal or a Cori Bush, they understand a damn thing about the debt limit. I really believe they don't know what they're we're going to be mad because Joe didn't get his way. We're going to wet the bed.
I feel like I'm pretty smart and I got a lot of degrees and I still need Aaron Hedlund to explain it to me. It gets really complicated. So I agree with you.
I always know if Stephanie is confused about something, then I can feel okay about being confused about something.
You got to read the room, and that's what I do sometimes. Because sometimes somebody will be talking, and I'm like, I'm not able to comprehend what's being said. I'm not able to process it. And then I'll look around like, is everybody else confused like I am?
Well, and I think part of the thing with the debt ceiling is we've been outspending for so long, and the numbers are so huge that it kind of feels like funny money, like lottery money, and so it's also hard to just grasp because the numbers are so big, just from a regular folks standpoint.
As long as we just keep getting our free money, man, we're good. Welcome
keep
into
printing it.
Yeah, keep printing it.
What about my student loans?
Oh my gosh, let's not go there. If you get free money for your student loans, we are going to have there's going to be, what did she say? Stephanie will be in the streets freaking out. No student loan forgiveness for you.
Incidentally, I'm listening to the Gary Nolan show yesterday. He's here weekdays starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, and some caller came in and mentioned producer Hannah, and I'm like, and I wanted to get on the show with Gary and say that caller does not know what he's talking about. Because what happens whenever this comes up, people, Hannah wants that student loan forgiveness, blah, blah, blah.
That statement is factually correct.
Sure.
But the missing context is I want the student loan forgiveness because I was told that I was getting it. And then we got jerked around for 6+ months.
Well, and ask those people complaining, did you take the stimulus money? What about any of the business benefits during COVID? Did you take the free money the government was handing out?
Because I didn't get any stimulus money.
And you know how much I talked about my distaste for that stimulus money? But you know what I did? I donated it to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Yellowstone National Park.
And CC's.
So I put it back into the economy, and I am totally okay with it. So that was
I believe $2,000 or $1,200 for a single person. Senator Hawley and Senator Bernie Sanders actually worked on that. They actually sponsored that bill. And they both had the idea that should have been even higher, that it could have affected more people. But they were trying to prime the pump at the time. The economy was really, really, it was hurting. And then we had a lot more things that came in after that as far as the various different bills that passed. But that one was pretty bipartisan.
Coming up, 8:25 Morning Bell Business News. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can bring you. Dow is down 231 yesterday. How our futures looking? We are doing that for you. And it's being hailed as the Missouri Miracle. There's people coming from all over the Midwest to the town of, and this just came up on the show the other day, to the town of Conception, Missouri. Why are people going there? We're covering that at 8:35. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here.
It's good to see you.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
There's Marsh.
Yes, sir.
My name is Branden Rathert. There's something we can do for you, 874-9390. Do want to talk about this surreal scene that unfolded yesterday here in mid-Missouri. But since you brought up Josh Hawley's name, remember there was a time 2 years ago, a lot of people, when we talked 2024 presidential race, remember one of the top names that kept landing in those conversations? It was
Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Well, I was going to say Josh Hawley. But remember, there's a lot of folks that, hey, what about Josh Hawley for 20? I mean, that was serious talk, and it wasn't just like for a weekend because it was a slow news cycle. It was some serious, legitimate talk. But he might have a really hot Senate race on his hands in 2024.
What?
Luke, you don't think?
No.
No?
No, I don't either. I mean, this state. No, I think what Brandon's saying is an interesting point about Lucas Kunce because he's bringing out John Hamm and some big names like that. But the bottom line, outstate Missouri is deep red. I mean, deep red, and I don't know if they could put almost any candidate up, and the Republicans outstate are going to the vote for the Republican candidate, and plus he's very, very popular there. That said, in the urban areas, they not so popular as much. But right now, my gut feeling is he'd win 57 to 59% of the vote. That's just my gut.
Well, and Lucas Kunce ran for like a year before Trudy Bush Valentine got in, and then she smoked him in the primary.
That was kind of a nasty race too.
Yeah, and so something about him I think is like unelectable. I don't know. I mean, I think he did go to Mizzou Law. Then he went to D.C. for a bit, and I forget now where he technically resides. But
I believe he's from Jefferson City. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I went to school. I went to elementary school with his siblings. Actually, they went to Moral Heights Elementary in Jeff City.
He was in the military.
He was in the military. However, I don't see him. He's very active on Twitter. And so maybe that's where you're seeing a lot of it, but I don't feel like he's going to resonate with regular Missourians.
So if we're using that argument about the political split, does that apply to like the legalization of marijuana? Because we said who legalized marijuana? It wasn't Missouri, although technically it was Kansas City and St. Louis that legalized it.
In
really,
Boone County. It failed in probably, I'm going ballpark from memory, 95 plus of the county is statewide.
So it was St. Louis County and St. Louis City and Kansas City that passed legalized marijuana. Could those same people not? Could Kansas City and St. Louis elect Lucas Kunce?
No, I don't think so because Nicole. It's a great point. And theoretically, it could happen, but Nicole Galloway was banking on that because she thought, well, she saw how Right to Work went very similar. She also saw how Medicaid expansion vote went down. Nicole Galloway was hoping that she could somehow put together a coalition. Theoretically, you could win a gubernatorial race, maybe with 6 to 8 counties. It didn't happen. Parson won in a landslide. Same thing with Schmidt. But for some reason, in these other elections, they don't go the same. And many of those folks, I looked at the ballots. I mean, you had people in southeast Missouri that voted against in the district, voted against Right to Work overwhelmingly, and turned around and voted for State Representative Holly Rader. She won in a landslide, and she was the sponsor of Right to Work. So, and what do I attribute that in the outstate areas? Guns and abortion. Those are two big issues in outstate Missouri.
And plenty of conservatives voted in favor of marijuana. That might have not carried in those counties, but there are tons of people out there who said yes to marijuana and will say hell no to Lucas Kunce.
That's interesting. That could be the case, too.
Do you want to hear some of the Lucas Kunce ad against Josh Hawley already?
I think John Hamm narrates some of that.
Manhood. You'd hope that means courage. Courage isn't something you can give speeches or write a book about.
So, shots fired at Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley has a book on manhood, and Lucas Kunce, we appreciate his service to the country, by the way. But in this video, they're talking about manhood and being bold and courage. And they're showing video clips of Hawley running out of the Capitol on January the 6th, like with his credenza in hand or whatever. Oh! As far as the sick burns and stuff like that, it's a good ad.
It just seems so weird. Like, let's talk about issues. Let's talk about spending. Let's talk about taxes. Like, let's talk about those kinds of. Why are my politicians telling me, like, what is a woman, how to be a woman, manhood, how to be a man, manly? Just no. Like, why? I just don't think we should go there.
The race with Josh Hawley and Lucas Kunce. I remember a lot of their rhetoric kind of jived with the other guy because Hawley and Lucas were both dumping on the multinational corporations and big tech and China and the elites in America. And they all sort of, they came at it from two different directions. It sounded like a lot of the rhetoric met right in the middle.
But is this race going to really come down to, like, who's manlier? Like, Give me a break.
Now, I haven't seen the rest of this ad that Brandon started to play, but first impression, it sounds like one of the old Real Men of Genius.
It did, didn't it?
And that's John Hamm, who's voicing it, the actor John Hamm. Real handsome dude. That's the dude who is voicing
But again, if you're a Missourian and you're like, hey, guess what? This guy has Hollywood supporting him.
I don't care.
Yes, no, it's just not going to fly.
Yeah.
And the key again for Kunz to have any chance at all, he is going to have to pick up votes outstate. That's the key. Rural voters, and will that ad resonate? That's up to the folks out there to decide.
And here's the other thing that I'll say about Lucas Kuntz. His wife, she's pretty funny. She's a comedian. We've highlighted
No,
some
that's
of her-
Jason Cantor.
Oh, never mind. Then that's okay.
Come on, man.
Well, then Lucas Kuntz in my book's got nothing going for him.
Jason
then.
Cantor's wife is funny and recently did a stand-up set. She's also highly educated and very talented and has written a book.
Did anybody ever teach our friend Chris Arps how to pronounce his last name?
Oh,
His
gosh.
own last name?
No, Lucas's last name.
Oh.
We cannot say that on air.
Chris did.
Coming up, we're doing the morning bell, you guys. By the way, I want to give some love and some kudos to everybody in law enforcement, all first responders, 911 operators, EMT, firefighters, all this. A surreal scene unfolding yesterday in mid-Missouri, 9-hour standoff. This had to do with a woman and I'll say, in a nice neighborhood. This is not where these types of things happen.
Very nice area.
Very nice
Beautiful.
neighborhood.
The Highlands.
Yeah, we call it the 65203. It's the money zip code. For a little bit of contrast here and context, like I live in the 65201. So you have the 65202 step and then the 203. So I'm like 2 steps removed. Nice area. Dude who was accused of apparently killing this woman, home invasion, robbery, has officers on a 9-hour standoff. Yesterday, an incredibly hectic scene. There were hostages, shots being fired, and trying to communicate with the guy. End of the day, self-inflicted gunshot wound got the guy. I'm like, good. So we're not going to have to spend money on a trial.
But the only thing is, with him being deceased now, and they do believe self-inflicted gunshot wound, we've had a lot of listeners ask, was she killed outside her home? She being, and again, Janet Jago, we don't know that. The only way the police are being tight-lipped, we would have ever been able to get that is court documents. May not get that now with him deceased.
And as soon as we find out, you will find out. Coming up, Morning Bell, business news, little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
You know, I had an opportunity to go to Cape Girardeau yesterday, and they were talking about business attraction and economic development. Here's one new way, a new idea, newer, that you can increase economic development in your own local community.
All right, how can you do this? It's a new Morning, 8:25, time for the Morning Bell. Business news with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Futures this morning are looking down with the debt ceiling looming, and we kind of heard that it could not be great for the markets from our friend Aaron Hedlund this morning, but all three futures we normally look at are down pretty significantly this morning as the market prepares to open. So yesterday I went to Cape Girardeau, and it was for a Hawthorne Foundation meeting. If you don't know about the Hawthorne Foundation, check it out. You can Google it, Missouri Partnership. There's a lot of entities in Missouri that are kind of working with the state to do economic development, to promote Missouri as an attractive place to have a business and locate your businesses. And it's neat to see so many leaders across the state, a lot of higher ed leaders, business leaders, community leaders working together to try to convince people, hey, Missouri is the right place for you. And we hear about some of these trips that the governor takes, overseas to talk to international folks and say, hey, bring your business here. As someone who's elected myself in Ashland, I think a lot about, how can we attract businesses to our own community, and what else can we do for economic development purposes. And so Ashland had some really big successes with Amazon, with the new terminal, all sorts of, we've got scooters and Taco Bell and all the cool things going on. And so hopefully some.
How are we doing with the, what's the one place, Sonic? How are we doing there?
No Sonic.
That's what Stephanie's been waiting on, the Sonic.
Sad. But it's so it's something that's constantly on my mind. So I was interested to read this with Fox Business this morning. Apparently Taylor Swift is not the only one making bank on her tour, but if you happen to be part of one of the sites, you are also making bank. So one study says that for a $100 purchase of a concert ticket, it comes with about $330 in spending in the local economy. Obviously, Taylor Swift tickets are way more than $100, and they're saying a lot of people are traveling, obviously, to watch Taylor Swift. So it's just having a crazy impact on local economies. Nashville's already booming, but they said that weekend that she was there, that brought in about 250,000 people that weekend. And I think it was in Nashville. Oh, yeah. So Nashville's hotel occupancy rate that weekend reached 97%. So hotels sold out whenever the tour comes through town. And then other folks are saying, whether and beyond just hospitality, restaurants, hotels, that kind of thing, they're saying also, malls, for whatever malls are left, but like museums and other tourist attractions, people who are traveling in for the concert might come for a couple of days, and then they're also looking for other things to do. Taylor Swift is actually coming to Kansas City in July, right after the 4th of July. She is not coming, I don't think, to St. Louis. So that's also interesting, because I think when you're looking at attracting, we talk about the crime problem. I think that's probably something, if you're having that type of event, that's on your mind as well when you're scheduling those things. I do know that, Ashland has that new venue by Nick Parks, which is Lakeside Ashland, and they're planning a Midwest Country Fest later this summer to bring in an artist to mid-Missouri. And so I'm excited about that, because I think people think, oh, concerts are fun, right? And they think of them as kind of like fluff. And I don't think people know that they actually do bring hard dollars, because those folks who are coming in for the concert, yeah, they're going to go out to dinner. They're going to stay in your community. And I'm being a big fan of live music myself. I think it's better to look at it like that and think, how can we get these events to help our other economic development interests as well?
She is coming to Kansas City June 2nd.
I think June 7th, I thought.
Or
July 7th. Sorry, July 7th.
I'm having to fact check the girls
July
on the
7th.
show. What the heck is going on here today? Taylor Swift tickets, Kansas City, 2 shows in July, bring almost 200,000 people. Tickets right now, StubHub, $1,924.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on.
Stephanie Bell, the co-host, with a smile so true. She's the one who's got the country spirit, and she'll sing it just for you. Chorus now. Stephanie Bell, oh, won't you sing a country song? Wake up mid-Missouri, let the melody roll along. Man, how about that? Or, Marsh, you said you like that performance better than the one last week?
Yeah, it's kind of, Blake Shelton-esque.
So we're using ChatGPT and Google Bard, and so far we have found a couple of ways to use it here on the show. Have you used this stuff yet? 874-9390, 874-9390. So we did that for Stephanie Bell this morning. She missed out last week while she was gone. I thought this was a better performance.
Yo, listen up. It's time to shout about our man Brian, there is no doubt. As the news director on the air, he brings the truth with style and flair. From Wake Up Mid-Missouri, he brings the news every morning, chasing away the blues. With a voice so smooth, he's got the flow. Delivering stories, let them all know. Now here's the chorus. Brian Houseworth, you're the real deal. On the radio, you make us feel informed and connected day by day. We appreciate you in every way. And let's not forget, when the day is done, at Crackle Barrel is where he has fun.
I love it. Well done.
Which was better, your song or Stephanie's song? Not the song, but the performance, because I'm a horrible singer.
I think your singing was better in the second one, So.
In the rap song?
Yeah.
I think Hannah's laugh made it.
It was well done.
The backing track.
You did a great job.
Marsh, so you think the rap, you think the country performance is better? Steph, you think your song is better? Halsworth thinks his song is better. Hannah, it comes down to you, kiddo.
I am partial to the rap one.
I thought it was pretty good, too. You know who's a really good singer here on the show?
Savior, he can move the mountains. My God is
That's Hannah.
mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered.
And that's the best part of that song.
But Hannah, your
awesome.
Branden is musical too, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's so. When I was at Silver Dollar City last week, it was the Bluegrass and Barbecue Festival, and I walked by the grandstand, and there was a family up there, mom and dad and 4 kids, and they sang John Denver.
Oh.
It was so good, and I felt bad. I was like, oh, this is so cool, and I'm like, I'm not musical.
Yeah, my fiance is an excellent guitar player, excellent singer.
That could be you. You could be at Silver Dollar City later with all of your kids.
Not
on
with
the
those
grandstand.
guitar skills.
Come on.
I know 4 notes and can't figure out strum patterns.
As a matter of fact, whenever Hannah and her fiance get married on Valentine's Day, they're going to the mountains of Colorado to start a folk singing band. The two of them, it'll be a duo.
I also wonder now that Senator Rowden might have some more time on his hands coming up, because he used to be like a professional Christian music artist, and I wonder if he would come out of retirement for a minute. That would be fun.
I hope he brings back the hairdo that he had.
Yes.
Hey, coming up before 9 o'clock, before we get into the Gary Nolan show, some ratings, man. I'm looking at cable news ratings.
Ooh.
This Tucker stuff, it's been impactful at night for Fox News. We will have that for you. By the way, if you lost 10% of your money, would that hurt?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 10% of zero. I mean, for real, I mean, it depends. Why are we losing 10% of our money?
Bud Light. It continues. NBC is now doing it. I mean, like every day. As a matter of fact, lead line, NBC, nobody imagined it would go on this long. Bud Light sales continue to plummet over the Mulvaney backlash.
And I have had people close to me that I don't really consider political, but we've been talking about drinking on the lake, and people are like, no Bud Light. I mean, they are adamant, and people that I wouldn't have expected that from.
So the sales, and they're continuing to drop even more and more. 2 weeks ago, a decline of 27.7%. Last week, a decline of 20%, and it continues to grow.
And I think why it's catching people by surprise is that in the past, liberals have been really good at the boycott, the economic boycott, and conservatives have always kind of been like, yeah, we don't like it, but like whatever. And we just haven't been as good. And this is the first one. I think this is one of the first ones where people are like, no, we are serious about this. And we're seeing a little bit, and I'm seeing some on social media about Target and their swimsuit thing and all of that. And so I am seeing some pushback there as well. But I'll be interested to see if this kind of bolsters conservatives to really say, you know what, I'm not going to shop there anymore. I am going to take a stand.
So what I'm hearing is if I'm planning on purchasing Bud Light for our wedding reception, that I need to go ahead and do it now because it'll be cheaper.
There you go. Take the sticker off the keg and tell them it's Bud
You're gonna
Heavy.
have to carry it all home with you. Is what you're hearing? Is that no one is going to drink it?
And there's a lot of the pictures and videos.
Free beer.
There was a video from Fenway Park. They showed like the Coors Light line and the Bud Light line, and there's nobody in Bud Light. And there's pictures, and I don't know the veracity of these pictures, but they had like cases of Bud Light, $19.99. Mail an offer, get an $18 rebate. I don't know if that's accurate, that's Photoshop, but you're seeing a lot of that out there.
But I will say, Budweiser, it's a smart brand. Like, they've been around forever. I feel like there's going to be a way around this. I mean, I solely drink Coke Zero now, which is literally just like Diet Coke with something else. Like, it's so similar. So can't you foresee, like, they're just going to, there's so many different types of light beers just under another name. So we're suddenly not going to have Bud Light. We're going to have, like, Superior
Budweiser Extra.
Yeah, something like that. Bud Ultra, and it's going to be the Bud Light formula in a different bottle, but you won't feel bad holding it in your hand, right?
Right, because that's the thing. People, they're not wanting to go out in public. They're not going to these bars from what I gather. I don't know. I don't hang out at bars anymore, but they're not wanting to go to a bar and get a bottle of Bud Light and then have somebody, they're just not interested, and they're saying just stay away from it, and Target's in the midst of it. Now, Brian Houseworth, you remember the tuck rule? What that had to do, NFL playoffs, Tom Brady, Marsh.
The Oakland Raiders.
The Oakland Raiders playoff game. You remember this, John? The game that spawned the tuck rule?
Oh, sure. Just Tom Brady cheating again, but
2002, I believe, maybe somewhere in there.
And it had to do with, it was a playoff game, and I think it's the game that sent the Patriots to the Super Bowl, and they ruled whether or not it should have been a fumble, and it had to do something to do with the tuck rule. And
it was in the snow, too.
It was in the snow. Target's coming under fire. And this is interesting because you read different accounts. You can get on USA Today, NBC, and they're saying, so Target has clothing items to celebrate Pride Month coming up in June, but they're also selling swimsuits. This is for a guy who thinks in his head that he's a girl and wants to wear a girl's bathing suit. Right?
Has nothing to do with Raiders quarterback Charlie Woodson from back in the day.
It's got nothing to do with the tuck rule, but they're selling these bathing suits where you can tuck, so a dude can tuck. And I find that incredibly sexist. Are they making swimsuits for girls that think they are dudes? Anyhow, 874-9390. Chris is in Columbia this morning. What's up, Chris?
It's Rapmaster Rathert. That swimming suit deal, I don't know where to go on that.
I know that's uncomfortable.
Well, for you maybe. But anyway, the Bud Light deal, I had been hearing all about this and various comments from, people and hearing, there's a convenience store here, there, wherever that told them to get it out of the store and all that. I finally experienced it myself. Went over to the Conley Walmart the other day, was back in the beer department, walked around the corner, and here's this giant, all the coolers, and they have entire single coolers, all Bud Light, all Anheuser-Busch, blah, blah, blah. And they're all packed full, and there's nothing missing. And then there's one big empty cooler right in the middle of them. And it was the Yuengling. Really? And I finally had to read the label on the shelf, and I thought, wow, that's really showing you what's going on. And then a couple of days later, my brother gives me almost the same story. His old neighbors down at the lake said, well, yeah, they switched over to Yuengling, went to the store. It described exactly the same scene.
And
everything's packed except what I wanted.
So you saw it, and you're seeing it here in mid-Missouri. The other thing I find interesting, I've talked to other beer distributors over the past almost 2 months at this point that don't sell Bud Light products. And what I found remarkable about these folks, 3 different distributorships, by the way, that all sell Coors, and they're saying not only had their sales gone up, but they were all in about the same percentage range. I thought it was fascinating. Chris, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And the thing with Target, so there's some of these news stories. So Target is, they're saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't go this route because we saw what happened with Bud Light. We're already catching flack. But some of the news outlets are saying, well, because employees are getting threatened and stuff like that. And there probably is some of that. But then I think there's more accurate stories that are saying, well, they've realized because they're seeing the Bud Light thing and they're seeing it's still working and they're realizing people don't want to, they just don't want to part of that. It's not something that you want to. I mean, did you see everybody tense up when I talked about these bathing suits for a dude who thinks he's a chick? The bathing suit is built so he can tuck his junk. Did you see how everybody in the room got uncomfortable and how uncomfortable Chris was? It made people uncomfortable. Imagine walking into a Target or any store for that matter and seeing that kind of stuff. That makes people uncomfortable, and it's poor business, as we're seeing evidenced by Bud Light.
Well, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. Imagine the damage of a prominent politician, conservative politician, caught on a hot camera with the Bud Light in their hand from this weekend. Imagine what firestorm that would cause on Monday. I mean, I think that's the true impact, regardless of how it hurts, Bud Light's bottom line. I think that would be, imagine Ron DeSantis on a boat with the Bud Light on Monday. I mean, that would be headline news.
Jeff Smith, actually, take a look at his Twitter page because he posted a picture of Greg Keller, but Greg Keller stands by. And Greg Keller's a consultant, so we'll see what happens. But it will be interesting to see. Brandon, very quick note, we've got a flash flood warning. This is very unusual because right now it's not raining in almost any of our listening area, but it is raining in Callaway County and Montgomery very hard. There is a flash flood warning in Callaway County and Montgomery until 11:20 this morning. But many of our listeners aren't getting any rain at all. Most of us will have a chance of some storms today. I'm not expecting anything severe. It'll be dry after that, but it is raining very hard in Fulton. If you're in that area, just came out of nowhere, kind of, be very careful. You might even consider pulling over on the highway. It's raining that hard.
Counties we're really focusing on Callaway and Monroe County.
Callaway and Montgomery in our listening area. Yes, thank you.
All right, coming up a few minutes from now, we are going to be doing some leftovers. A couple of things we didn't get a chance to get to in the show, and I think we're going to include a story. It's being called the Missouri Miracle. People coming from all over
Enjoy.
Some things we didn't get a chance to get into. It's got us laughing right now. This happened several years ago. We had a listener send us a picture of a dead deer on the side of the road. Classic moment, I think, in the annals of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And is what happened. So there's a dead deer and somebody took a balloon and tied the balloon around it. Remember what the balloon said?
Get well soon,
I think. Well soon. We've got somebody who sent us another picture this morning, and it's lovely.
Yeah, my mother-in-law spotted this in good old Calimo, California this morning, and it is a get well soon balloon tied to a dead armadillo.
Which, the only thing that would make that more entertaining is if it were tied to a live armadillo. That would, now I'd be impressed, John.
I'm tempted to post it on the Facebook page, but we got ridiculed last time.
Do it.
We didn't tie the balloon on the dang thing.
We're just sharing information. Section 230, right? We're just sharing it. It's not our stuff.
All right, I'll post it.
Marsh, what do you got for leftovers this morning?
Cole County's named a contractor to build their new $5 million emergency medical services headquarters, an ambulance base in downtown Jefferson City, and awarded the bid to GBH. Looks like the cost of this keep going up. Initially, when they told us about it, they said it was going to be about $3.75 million, but they're working on some ARPA money and some block grant money to pay it off.
The Missouri Conservation Commission has given initial approval to increase their permitting prices. Most of them will go up by about $1, but that's for all of hunting, fishing, trapping, those kinds of things.
So to go hunting and doing stuff, it just costs a little bit more.
Yeah, they're saying they need to keep up with the price of inflation. They haven't raised them in a long time, and they're pointing to things like the price of gas and other things. It's actually open for comment right now. So if you have comments on the price it costs for you to go get your hunting permit, you can make your comment online.
Or after they go up and you want to complain about it, you'll be free to call into the radio show. This is interesting from Fox 4 in Kansas City. Some folks calling it the Missouri Miracle.
Hundreds of Catholic faithfuls are making the pilgrimage to Gower, Missouri. They want to witness what they describe as a miracle at the Benedictine Monastery. The focus is a body revealed to have no signs of decay 4 years now after burial. In the words of the sisters, it's incorrupt. That's a special word to Catholics because it signals a possible path to sainthood.
So they buried this woman 4 years ago, and they exhumed her, and apparently the coffin had a crack in it and everything, and they pulled it out, and like the body after 4 years is intact. I think from what I recall over the years, like a body typically, not in a coffin, but could be reduced to bone in like 10 days. So this apparently is just this big, and people are coming from all over. They're like, I want to see this body that's been deceased for 4 years.
Please light me on fire. This is why.
Yeah.
This is freaky.
But they're coming from all over, and apparently in the Catholic Church, it's a big deal.
I have something real quick. Today is the final day of the Rachel Ray Show. After 17 seasons.
What?
Her show is no longer.
Huh. I thought that had already happened.
You would have thought.
Yeah.
But...
speaking of, by the way, cable news ratings, this Tucker Carlson thing with Fox, they did okay for a couple of weeks.
They didn't do okay.
Well, compared to now, they're doing better right after he was fired compared to now. It's kind of like the Bud Light thing. It's continuing to get worse for Fox. I know it's happened maybe once or twice at night.